So we've seen you come to the defense of Wesley Naumann, the principal of Heathfield High School. Can you outline what the case is against him from the WCED and why the ANC is defending him?
Thank you very much. Very good question. I think this ties into the first question because the fact that they are pursuing him in this manner points to their misplaced focus. So the focus is not to apply all your political energy and bureaucratic energy to plan for learner enrollment. The focus is to gag those that you disagree with, particularly principals who are your employees actually. Wesley Naumann is an employee of the department. So what happened there, and I'm sure you'll remember, last year, COVID-19 was very new to all of us. Particularly, it rocked the education sector immensely. There were calls for schools to close. And in fact, at some point, the president of the Republic actually made the announcement that all schools were closed. I think we were at the height of, I don't know if it was the first, I think it was the first wave.
It was the first one. We were closed officially for 3 weeks.
Exactly, a severe first wave. Now, at that stage, when everything was starting to close up, there was hesitancy in the education sector. Remember, there was a stage when schools were still open. In fact, here in the Western Cape, even after National called for schools to close, our schools were open for a week still. Wesley Naumann then, not as an individual, but based on the decision of the governing body who represents parents, based on the decision of his staff of teachers, so for the protection of teachers, for the protection of parents and the community in Heathfield, took a decision to engage the department to say, look, my school can't cope. We've already got teachers who are infected by the virus. I'm running low in terms of staff complement. Parents are being affected. It's having knock-on effect. Kids are staying at home as a result. I think the school should close. And he felt, and his view was that he was part of a collective of other principals saying, you know what, the schools ought to close. A few days later, and remember that he in fact wrote an open letter to the president, which is his right, he's a citizen. A few days later, the president actually made the call and said, no, look, all schools must close immediately. What the WCED then ends up doing, and I will say here, nothing personal, but clearly driven by the MEC, clearly driven by a very, very vindictive approach by the MEC. The MEC then drove this process where Wesley Naumann then gets sanctioned. They then said, no, look, that's ill discipline. You can't go out and write open letter to the president calling for schools to close while the schools here are still open, this, that. And so they then instituted a disciplinary process against Wesley Naumann. The process, the hearing, which has lasted many days, has just concluded and is waiting. He's waiting for the outcome, but very unusual. Normally you get your outcome after 7 days. He's waiting almost a month now for the outcome. And they've spent close on to 700,000 Rand on the particular case. And it's not even in court. It's just an internal process at the moment. And I think this is the reason why the African National Congress has taken a decision to defend Mr. Naumann. Is firstly, we've got very few young people from our communities who wish to enter the education space with passion. This is Wesley Naumann. He could have entered any other. He's a bright young man, highly educated. Could have gone into any other space. He decided to go into teaching. He has led Heathfield High School with passion, with diligence, with dedication. So they are. So we want to defend the potential, and we want to safeguard that potential that Mr. Naumann has to grow, to improve Heathfield High School, to improve education in the province. That's number one. Number two, it's completely unjust. You don't gag a principal because the principal wants to defend the safety of learners, of parents and teachers. Number three, this speaks to a systemic problem in the management of WCED. The way in which the department under the political leadership of the MEC, I say department under leadership because, and I'm not playing politics here, many of these same officials operated when Cameron Dagmo and Yusuf Gabru were MECs, and it was different because the political direction was different. You've got a situation where it's a top-down approach. Management in the department dictates to principals, they dictate to teachers. They don't get the views of principals and teachers. Teachers and principals are treated like cheap labor and like robots that just have to function, not taking into account that these are human beings and that these are people that parents actually entrust their children with for most part of the day.